Hello, this is Scottish Independence podcast number 116, and it's nice to be back after a wee bit of time out, but, you know, life and work tend to get in the way of podcasting every so often. Listeners will know that on the show we've got people from all different parts of the Scottish independence movement, from the SNP to the Greens to... Actually, we haven't had any Greens on for a while. Anyone listening want to come on? Get in touch. But from the SNP, the Greens, the Scottish Socialist Party, Women for Indy, the Commonweal, and various journalists, activists, writers, and people involved in anyways. And I suppose the biggest new thing that's come up in the last few months is the rise of Rise. So it was time to get someone from Rise on to explain. So I spoke to Craig Paterson about what's going on with Rise. We also talked about the wider situation in Scottish politics at the moment, the upcoming parliamentary elections, and about a festering sore on the Scottish body politic, which is Dungavel. So let's get into it now, and then I'll have a wee word with you at the end. Hi Craig, how's it going?
Not too bad, Michael, thank you.
So I've asked you on the show to give us a wee rundown of two major things that are going on at the moment, but the first is the rise of Rise. You've been involved with it since the start, so can you give us a wee run through what's going on with Rise at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So after the public launch that we had at the end of August, we've been busy recruiting members and setting up circles. Instead, we're going to call them circles instead of branches. So we've got about 23 different circles across the country now. So everywhere from Eyemouth and the borders up to Dundee, Inverness, things like that, and everything in between. On the 5th of December, we'll hold a democratic conference, which will be open to members. And at this democratic conference, members will vote on policy, a structure for the leadership, and we'll discuss the campaign ahead, things like that. So at the moment, we have what's called a national forum, which meets every couple of weeks, and that's representatives from all the circles, the different groups that are involved, have representatives there as well, and that's basically the place where all this is being discussed at the moment. So yeah, things are going quite well. I think that one of the main things that we wanted to do with Rise, for the left, if you like, was to professionalise and also to put things out there that could be taken seriously in the political domain. I think we've done that in terms of things like we did the water report. We've also done a national standardised testing report, which went down really well as well. So yeah, quite positive at the moment. Things are going well.
So a lot of people have been signing up.
Yeah, we have. I'm not sure the exact figures. That's not my particular side of things, but I think probably for the conference at the moment, we're looking to be on track to have about 1,000 members, probably more than 1,000 members by the time the conference rolls in. There or thereabouts. But that's a push. That's something I would like to see. I'd like to see us hit 1,000 members or there by the time we have a democratic conference, which wouldn't be too bad considering we've been up and running for a few months.
Have you got any idea at the moment about what policies the conference is going to be voting on? Like, what are the choices that are going to be put in front of the people?
No, unfortunately not. The reason for that simply is that this weekend we're having a national forum to discuss that. So basically, what we've said is that obviously the Rise came out of the Left project, which some people may or may not know. And the Left project was basically started to try and bring as many of the people together for the elections as possible. And we did a lot of things around the country called Democracy Now! Meetings, where we spoke to people and we asked their ideas. That work, along with work that was done at the launch conference and along with work that's been done in individual circles, will make up the basis for motions at conference. So individual members and circles can put things forward. That's all being done at the moment. Then there'll be a team of people who we put together who will basically say, okay, well, we've got a policy on housing from Inverness and a policy on housing from Glasgow West, for instance, and they're kind of the same, so can we put them together? That work is being done at the moment. But I would hope, or I would think, should I say, that you're going to have policies on, things like independence, fracking, probably things tried, and all the kind of usual things. But I'm actually quite interested to see what's not usual, and I think that's what will be quite good about this conference. There'll be certainly a number of radical policies put forward, I would assume. Certainly speaking to individuals, people interested in certain fields, for instance, have certainly come forward with some ideas on, standing that education policy, for instance, was one that we put a paper out about recently. So there'll definitely be something quite radical in there about that, I would hope.
And what was in the paper?
Well, I'm going to be totally honest, I haven't read it. It wasn't me that wrote it, but it was about 25, 30 pages long. It was written by, do you know, is it James, I'm going to get his last name, is it McInerney?
Yeah.
He writes for Common Space. Mm-hmm. So he wrote it. It was basically arguing against standardised testing, explaining why it's wrong, why we need a more teacher-based approach. We need to give the kind of power over how our children are learning to the people who are actually teaching them, rather than trusting it to a test that really doesn't suit. It's not a one-size-fits-all policy. I think for me, and I would suggest also for Rise as well, the driving force behind the independence movement was about change. And that change can still be realised in certain ways. Certainly, the vast majority of it can't be realised without independence. We know that. But there are certainly things that we would like to do to progress to progress Scottish society to a point where, when we do get independence, we're already on the journey rather than having to start it from scratch.
Yeah, there's no point in waiting. So,
No, definitely not.
but there's been various parties and groups that are under the umbrella of Rise. If in case people haven't heard, who's actually in Rise apart from individual members, could you tell the listeners what groups are actually involved?
Sure. So, I mean, the largest by far will be the Scottish Socialist Party. We have different campaign groups, so like the TIE campaign, which has got a lot of press recently, which is the Time for Inclusive Education.
I just interviewed them last night. They'll be the episode out before this one.
Well, Jordan and Liam are very good. I've become very good friends with them, and I'll say just very briefly on a side note that it's people like them that it's a joy to find. When we started Rise, and we knew that obviously there are obviously the organised left, but there are layers and layers of people out there like Jordan and Liam just on their own doing things that we are so glad and happy to find. But anyway, besides the point, there are various different campaign groups, Scottish Land Action Movement, for instance, as well, and quite a number of smaller, disparate kind of left-wing groups, Republican Communist Network, International Socialist Scotland, things like that. A lot of the kind of smaller groups, which is what happened to the left in the last 10 years. It broke up into several small groups, a couple of bigger ones, but several small ones as well. So at the moment, we're totally focused on building these circles in these local areas and bringing on people who don't have a political home or who are waiting for a political home. Obviously, quite a chunk of the people who started the Left Project were the same people who started RIC as well. So we have that kind of milieu in there too.
When it comes up for Scottish Parliament election time, which I suppose will be the first big one under the Rise umbrella, what are the intentions of Rise? Are you going to be standing first past the post candidates, or is it just going to be on the list? Is it going to be, are you going to be going for vote 2, or are you going to try and stand in every seat, or is it going to be selective, or simply vote 2? Or, there's a number of ways that a smaller party could play it in Scotland as opposed to Westminster.
No, definitely. I mean, primarily it's going to be a list thing. There's always talk about, we could potentially stand one candidate here and stuff like that. But the main focus and the core strategy will be on the list. I think people like to say, you go on the list, it's kind of disparaging. You're just looking for it. You're looking for someone else's second vote, but that's not the case. It would be pointless for an organisation like us to stand on the list. I personally think it's pointless for any political party to stand on, not on the list, sorry, on the constituency seats. I think it's pointless for anyone to stand on the constituency seats against the SNP right now. Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems have to do it. But for any of the kind of so-called smaller parties, which I would include the Greens in that too, Patrick Harvey standing against Sandra White and Glasgow Kelvin, that's a principled stand perhaps, or a thing from the Greens. But for us, no, it'll be the list. And we won't be targeting the list solely on the basis of saying, well, we're pro-independence, we're the most left-wing pro-independence group, you should vote for us because of that. Give us your second vote because of independence. No, the main thrust of our strategy will be, here's the policies that we're setting down, here's the progressive view that we want to see, here are the things that we talked about during the referendum, about the things we wanted to see for Scotland, this is how we would like to change it. That would be part of what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, what you said there about, in certain sense, it's useless to stand against the SNP in the constituency seats. It's true as far as it goes, but obviously, over time, if you can maybe get a few MSPs and then build it up, then with that comes more resources, and maybe that's probably your idea that with time it would make more sense to stand in the constituency seats.
Yes, absolutely. I think what's the best way to put this? This, for a lot of us, certainly for those of us that kind of birthed this, if you like, it's not a 1 year thing. It's not a 2 year thing. It's a 20, 30 year thing. We understand. We know. And a lot of people keep saying, we need unity. We must stand together. Everybody behind one person, etc., etc. Well, I completely disagree with that. For me, the strength of the independence movement was in its diversity. The same's true of the Scottish Parliament. And why is it at the moment and in the future, why would it not be beneficial to have 3 pro-independence parties and 1 unionist party? Why is it beneficial to have 1 pro-independence party and 3 unionist parties in Scotland? Don't understand that. But definitely in the future, we have got realistic aims for this campaign and a very clear understanding of how difficult it will be to get people elected in the future as well. But we feel that right now is the right time to do this, to come forward with our ideas and put them down and say, I think a lot of people in the independence movement have kind of accepted or strapped themselves in for the next 5 years and they'll wait. But within 5 years, there'll be a big clamour again for another referendum to go into the manifestos for 2020, 2021, whenever we get the next Scottish elections again. And for this, about us, this is about rebuilding a base and becoming professional and becoming trusted by the electorate again.
Hasn't the marvellous socialist revolution being carried out by Kezia Dugdale not just convinced you all to give it up and stop?
No. Corbyn mania, which has really not been adopted by the Scottish branch, has not convinced us at all. Corbyn's a good guy, but he's one man inside a party that has been centre-right for quite a number of, maybe 10 years or so now. But I did a lot of press stuff, things like that, and, really kind of long-term thinking, different ideas and stuff. And I've always found it really strange that the Labour Party in Scotland called Kezia Dugdale Kez. If you go to their Facebook and their Twitter, it's all Kez said this and Kez was going here, and it's a trick. It's a very simple political trick to try and make Kezia Dugdale look young and cool and hip, and Kez is doing this and etc.
It's got a Z in it though.
Yeah, but to me it looks very much like she's a child. And if you're asking people to vote for you to become the leader of the country, then use your name. People might not like politicians, but they like professionals. They'll vote for professionals. And the Labour Party in Scotland certainly don't seem professional. However, I think it's very, very difficult for them at the moment, and I think it will be entirely difficult for them in the future to ever come back from what's happened to them.
But at the moment, the nuclear policy thing is just mental. So Corbyn's against it, but the English party is for it. Yep. Kezia's for it, but the Scottish party's against it. I mean, what the hell is going on there?
It's a little bit of fighting, if you like, that's going on. Which, again, just draws exactly to the same conclusions that they're really not really sure what's going on. From an outsider's perspective, it certainly seems as though there are those in the Scottish Labour Party who understand which way the wind is blowing. That the only way for them to ever, really, truly, ever become a party of government in Scotland again is to break with Westminster. Because they'll never win back those voters that they've lost if they don't do that. And this is an easy way to do it. We're against it, but there's nothing we can do about it. So we're just the same as the SNP, effectively. The problem for the Labour Party is nobody cares. Nobody trusts them. And those people that do vote for them, who, some of them will have been pro-independence, so some of them voted yes, that will go back to Labour, but the vast majority of them voted no. They've been traditional Labour supporters all their life. They are never going to be able to be represented again by what they believe the Labour Party actually is. And, voting against Trident in the Scottish Parliament for me is just smoke and mirrors. It's a ploy. It's nothing less than that. You only need to read the front pages of the National, for instance, does it so well. It's nothing but a trick, in my opinion.
But the reason I'm sort of focusing in this direction is because I think that this is where some rise votes could come from, in the sense that a lot of Labour people in Scotland have made a very difficult jump over to the SNP. For them, that might have been very difficult. I imagine there are some Labour people that simply won't be able to bring themselves to do that, which leaves either more to the left or more to the right. And the Tories are seeing, actually, the Tories are taking some of the sort of unionist vote off of that dwindling Labour vote. And, Rise could take the more kind of left-wing side of that as well. If Labour continue to self-destruct in this way, it does actually bode well for Rise as a movement.
I want to say categorically, because at the end of the lesson, I'm sure will be that we are not putting things out there, SNP bad, just simply so that we can get SNP votes.